I had no idea where it was going until it was over.
When the beholder had me in its mouth, I thought, oh God.
Our mage went down twice every day.
And they nearly all died.
This is a format I would do again, though.
Folks, I will be at the Dungeons & Dragons D&D in a Castle April event in 2025. This is my favorite time of year to visit the castle. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's just right for getting into it all and putting on your craziest character costume and just letting your hair down and giving yourself permission to spend a remarkable time in an amazing place with some truly fantastic people. I love D&D in a Castle. I love traveling around and playing D&D with other folks in their own hometowns. But the castle just has something magical to it. There is a sense of the 2,000 years worth of history that is on site. Trust me, I know, I give a history tour every time I go to the castle. I absolutely love it. Come and join me or the other GMs at D&D in a Castle.
So I've been on the road since 5 this morning, and I'm now sitting in an airport lounge waiting for my flight to the USA. Now, the group that have hired me to go out there, I arrive on Thursday afternoon, and then we game Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I fly back to the UK on Monday. So it's quite a tight schedule.
I was expecting a Fantasy Dungeons & Dragons campaign similar to what I've heard described of convention play. I've not ever attended and played at a convention, but I understand the pacing as being different from playing with a group of friends. So I expected a pretty quick through line.
I've been very jealous of those that have gotten to play with you at D&D in a Castle, and that's on my list. I thought we would try to maybe create that in a small way here.
My lovely clients said, hey, we've got our guy, our DM, who's been working with us for years, is going to come and do a live action gameplay. Are you in? And I said, hell yeah.
This is one of the challenges as being a professional GM where you are traveling to run games for folks, is you got to make sure these games are going to be interesting and engaging. So I did some prep work with them, asking them what they kind of wanted, but like a lot of fans, a lot of players, they kind of went, well, we just want fun, just make it cool, make it awesome. I gave them some options, and the one option that they did seem to like was a world setting, which I've used once or twice before. It's not my usual campaign setting of Braxia. It's a exploded world called Shatterpoint, and the premise is that the planet exploded due to some magical force, but in mid-explosion, more magic contained it, and you can see this Shatterpoint world. And so the players can move between the different layers, provided that they have air transportation or something along those lines. And the idea that I have come up with, the plan, is that a big bad at the very center of this shattered planet in a space called the Void is able to manipulate this magic that's holding the planet in place and is threatening to cause the planet to actually continue to explode, which would kill everybody on the higher levels, the majority of the population. So hopefully our heroes will pick up the mantle and go on their journey.
I don't know what I was expecting. I knew that the general world and, the premise behind it, and I had a feeling we were going to go from the outside to the inside. But other than that, I didn't really have any expectations. I had a feeling it would be fun and it would be interesting knowing Vic and Marshall, but that was about it.
Honestly, for a 3-day stint of kind of a one-shot adventure, it was a little bit slower than what I was expecting, but that was a pleasant end result. You didn't railroad us as much as what I thought you would. So in our prior game that we just finished, there's no railroading. It's open world adventure. So whatever we wanted to do, if we wanted to see the plot and then immediately go to creating an economy of Dragonglass or something, we were open to do that. I thought we really weren't going to be open to more free play than we were. And we had open opportunity to do whatever we wanted to. So, yeah.
And because it's a 3-day campaign, I need to have a plan for each of the 8 hours. And so I've broken it down using the 5-step method in terms of things that could happen, things that could be used during the game. If they are going to happen or not, I don't know. But I've broken it down into, okay, step 1, we need to introduce the idea that this planet is going to be exploding, so the guy's going to have a random adventure that they start off with. They finish that adventure, and suddenly the planet starts falling apart, and then this hostage sort of decree gets made, this ransom. Either the entire world acknowledges the big bad as the overlord and surrenders to him immediately, or he destroys the planet. And at that point, the heroes then need to figure out what they're going to do. Are they going to engage with this thing? Are they going to travel to the core, to this void space, which apparently you can't get to, except they will meet a gnome who's got a device, a submersible, if you will, that will allow them to travel to the void and get inside and hopefully stop the big bad. But, like every good journey, they need to go and fetch a component. Well, they need to get the submersible first, because it may or may not have been pawned off to pay for the gnome's gambling habits. So they need to go and get that first. And once they've got that, then they realize that parts of it have been flogged already. So they need to get those parts, all the while the planet is busy collapsing around them. And then they need to make their journey into the void, which means passing through some very dangerous territories. And so day 1 is basically getting the submersible up and running. Day 2 is the journey from where they are into the void, and then day 3 would be the void. That's the plan.
I could tell that this setup felt appropriate to the time available for it, and the breakpoint came very naturally.
I love the social aspect. I always tend to play more charisma-based, more of a talker. I had no idea where it was going until it was over.
Right, I'm on day 3. I'm just waiting for my pickup from the hotel to head through to the gaming venue. And day 1 proceeded exactly as I had foreseen it. Everything according to plan. It was a delight to play. I hadn't played with 2 of the players before, and so our wizard, rogue, bard, cleric party started to go through the machinations of discovering the plot that I had put together. And by the end of that session, they had pretty much worked out that they needed to go to the very center of the world, to the void, to try and stop this calamity from happening. And they were hot on the trail of what they needed to do. So I wasn't particularly panicked. And it was a joy to watch as they deviated. They did things that they wanted to do and followed things that they wanted to do, but naturally just kind of came back to where they needed to be.
I didn't know going in, is this going to be exhausting? Am I going to, have a hard time getting through it? But it was really nice. It was really organic. There would be sometimes when you call for a break and I would think, oh, we've been playing for 4 hours and it just went by. I thought it was a good pacing. I didn't feel rushed. I think one of the things that I take most from this is it felt like we had a lot of guidance, but then we were being sort of gently, hey, let's go in this direction, but then we can make a lot of different decisions. So it was like on rails, but gentle rails, and we could kind of bump off the rails, but I didn't feel like, okay, we're being force marched into this specific play style. So it felt like there was a lot of exploration that could be had.
But there's a respect for everyone's time and a respect for what's happening and a care for the narrative and understanding that there is weight to these choices.
Now, the most critical thing that I do at the end of day 1 is to ask my players if there's anything that they want me to change up for the next 2 days. Do they want me to add in more combat, more social, less social, more politics, and all those kinds of things? And their emphatic response was, no, they were quite happy with what we were doing.
No, I got to focus on, my favorite thing in gaming is strategy and combat. So I got to focus on that. Everybody else got to focus on what I think was their enjoyment. So everybody had fun.
And day 2 was the journey. It was the characters getting to the void where the big showdown was going to happen. And I have to say that proceeded beautifully. I didn't know where the characters were going to go. I didn't know what they were going to do, but they kind of fell back on their backstories a little bit, which was wonderful. I love it when players do that. And they went to the Dwarvish territories. That was a lot of fun to kind of play through and to let them get in some cool stuff. Now, in the Dwarvish territories, that's where they nearly all died.
When the beholder had me in its mouth, I thought, oh God, how are we getting out of this one?
There were, let's see, our mage went down twice every day, I think. There was one point where the tank, got petrified, and I was pretty sure that they were all going to die, and I was just going to have to sit and watch.
This fight that I had set up was, and I wish I took a photograph of it during play, but I was kind of busy at the time. It was a giant chamber with 5 platforms suspended above a 100-foot drop onto spikes below. And the characters were facing off against a demi-beholder, a nerfed-down version of a beholder that only had 2 legendary attacks around, and that was it. It didn't really do very much else. But it would teleport around, and it would pick off the party, and it would attack them.
But also, I have a lot of faith in you as a DM that to strike that balance between letting us be in danger, letting us be at risk without putting us in a situation where we're gonna get so far out over our skis that we're gonna get all ourselves completely killed and have no hope and finish the game after one day. So I think there was a bit of a trust on both sides that I really wasn't ever completely worried.
They didn't even kill the Demi-Beholder, by the way. They disabled it and gave it to the Dwarvish Thane as a gift. And in exchange, he gave them some magical items, which they found very useful. And then they did actually journey into the void. Now, this is what I wanted to talk about in this recording specifically, the challenge. And this is the part that I love about my particular approach to how I run games is I know my big bad is in the void. They're in a tower. They have control over things. But I have no idea how that confrontation should go down. I've got an entire 8-hour day ahead of me. I doubt it's going to take 8 hours, but it is the last day, and it's got to be the most spectacular. So I've got to increase my 3 Ps, pain, pressure, and problem.
Well, I eventually wrapped up the entire campaign with the party splitting in 3 different directions. It was super epic, it was chaotic, it was crazy, it was lovely, and basically the players ended up dropping about 1/4 of a planet on the big bad. And that killed him. Or did it? It was an absolute blast, my time spent in Arkansas and the town of Little Rock playing with these amazing players. I am, as always, in awe of how the players make the game so much more enjoyable. And as you've heard, they came together, they worked together, and they did their bits, and no one was sort of arguing. It was just an absolute pleasure and an absolute dream. I did have a 30-hour return flight nightmare, thanks to Chicago and all sorts of things, including a tornado, so that's always fun. But overall, I think that this is one of those special moments that you manage to snatch out of life, especially when life has got to the point where the idea of role-playing is nice, but there's just not enough time. So these kind of weekends, well, they basically give you the time. So that's my review on my games. If you want to see more of these kind of videos where I talk about the games that I run for private clients and that sort of thing, let me know in the comments down below. I'm always interested to hear what you are interested in. And of course, remember to hit that like button. That really does help.
I really wanted to ride the dragon, so that was a little disappointing. I didn't get to do that.
Absolutely. I would do this again. This is a good pace. It felt very positive to me. This has been a hobby for me for many years. I'm committed to it and I enjoy it. This is a format I would do again, though.